I got the job of stunt coordinating a movie called Prison, and that's where I met John Beekler. I guess it was quite an achievement for John to even convince the executives at Paramount that I should be considered to play Jason.
I actually pitched him to Frank Mancuso and showed him a headshot and a resume, and he says, he's fine, but, I don't really care, but he looks kind of small to me. I don't think he can play Jason. So I actually got together with a buddy of mine, Tom Calloway, who ended up shooting a lot of the second unit on the movie, and Kane, and we created a mock-up suit with a hockey mask and shot a test where he's picking up a guy and throwing him through walls and stabbing people, and it sold Frank that, okay, I understand what you're trying to do here. My intention was to redesign the look of Jason specifically to reflect all the damage that had been done to him in the previous movies, and the fact that he had been chained to the bottom of a lake for 10 years at the beginning of the movie gave me a starting point. I mean, he was resurrected from the dead in the previous one. They shoved the blades of a motorboat into his neck and his face, and I just got tired of seeing a guy in a gray costume wearing gloves with a hockey mask walking around, and there was nothing wrong with him. So I made a lot wrong with him. That aside, I also wanted to have an opportunity to do some really striking, over-the-top situations with regard to the story. And there was a lot of conversations being had. Ultimately, we settled upon him meeting a match that would really challenge him.
Jason? He was very animated, and he was one of my first directors, and he was very kind. And that was really important because a lot of them aren't kind. They just will start yelling at you, if you're not getting it. And Tina had all of the psychic stuff that I wasn't seeing. Some of the effects were done with me in there, and some were done later. So he would talk me through what was going to happen and how quickly to move my eyes or move my head.
Hey, Tina, isn't this the way the weather jack is back in the mental hospital?
We shot in Bay Minette, Alabama for, by and large, logistic reasons. We were shooting in the middle of wintertime. We had to have naked kids go into a lake and swim. We had to blow up a house on a lakefront. So if you're going to shoot in January in the continental United States and you want the forest rangers on your side and you're going to blow up a house on the edge of a lake, you find a state that's amenable to your concept.
They had an alligator wrangler, and he was like 80 years old and moved really slow. We'd be way back in the woods.
There were so many different stunts I had to do as Jason because the story was that the girl had telekinetic powers and made things happen with her mind so she could have anything happen to Jason. Normally, Jason, the violence he is delivering to other people, so the stunts are on those characters. But it was a lot more fun for me because I had so many stunts to do. I'm not really very short, and the window wasn't all that high from the bottom of the windowsill to the top. It was all breakaway glass, and I had to just run and crash through it. But I had to crouch and run at the same time and crash through it without really looking uncoordinated. And when I jumped through the window, my head cleared the upper real window frame by a quarter of an inch or something, so I got lucky on that one. The scene that was written where, and as I remember it, in the script, it was written where Jason follows the two people up the stairs to where the door, of course, is locked and they have no way out. I walk up the stairs, get to the top, and as written was, she makes the light shake and swing and hit me in the chest, and I tumble down the stairs. And I remember talking to John about that, saying, it's kind of weak. First of all, I think the light should hit him in the face, which is no problem since I had the hockey mask on. And then I said, what if, he's a big monster guy. He's not going to go tumbling downstairs. What if he just falls through them? So we manufactured, once I was at the top of the stairs, manufactured balsa wood stairs for about 10 of them or something. And I remember just falling backwards, which wasn't that difficult, although it was a small area to fall into. I had to be right on the mark going backwards. And I wanted to fall like a tree, which is why it's such a dramatic fall going through the steps. And I had a landing area underneath, but it was very narrow. And come to find out after the stunt that I went and looked at the stairs, and my head had crashed through the very last balsa wood stair. The one right below that, which is only 2 inches away, was where the practical one started. So it's a good thing I didn't go any further, because I would have really smashed my head on the real wood.
I pretended to act like I was a stunt woman. Where did that come from? Not doing it again. I fell through the ceiling in the house myself, and Kane helped me, and he had a big mat, and it didn't hurt. It just freaked me out. Little bitty fall. Looks dramatic, but freaked me out. And then they gave me a stunt woman's a T-shirt, like stunt woman. So I said, I can do that fall on the pier. Oh, I can do that. Sure, I'll slide on the pier. About 8 times later, sliding on a wooden pier in the cold. Not cool. It was very hard. So stunt women, love you.
And the fire scene is really one of the most difficult ones I've done. I've done a lot of fire, fully engulfed fire stunts, but that was different because of the costume I had to wear, and also the fact that we ignited on camera, which I guess you don't really think about it, but most often when you see someone on fire, you cut from something else to the shot of him already on fire. It's done quickly, so you don't really notice, but in this, we had the ignition, Lou Carlucci rigged a propane cannon, so it blast fire out of the furnace, whatever, and ignited me on camera, and then I did the stunt, and I was on fire for like 40-something seconds, which was extremely long at the time. Still is fairly long, but back then it was almost unheard of, but because of the stuff that I had to wear as the character, we were able to manufacture some safe materials to be able to do that.
was this boy named Jason Voorhees. Crystal Lake about 30 years ago. None of the counselors heard him. A bunch of years went by. Everyone forgot about it. And that's when the murder started to happen.
I was working on Friday the 13th, the series, and loving it because it was just little 1-hour movies, and they really turned us loose. They gave us a lot of creative freedom, and there were guys like David Cronenberg and Adam Egoyan directing them, and Frank Mancuso Jr. was really good to us with letting us go off creatively and write and direct whatever we felt like, with, of course, his guidance. And I had done several of them, and they, I guess, liked them, and they came to me and they said, would you be interested in writing and directing Part 8? And I was like, I blinked. I said, are you really? I was thrilled, you know. I mean, who wouldn't be? So, believe it or not, I had a thought of combining Freddy and Jason in a movie. And I'm not sure whether I was the first one who came up with that idea or not. Probably not, because it seems like such an obvious idea. But they explored it. And what they found out was, between the two studios and attorneys and all these other things, they couldn't come to an arrangement that would make everybody happy to combine them into one movie. So that went by the wayside. And the next thought is, I said, can I take him out of Crystal Lake? Can we get Jason out of the lake? 7 movies he's been in the lake. Let's do that. And they thought, yeah, that's a good idea. Let's try that. What are we going to do? And then we brainstormed. And I think I said, what if we take him to a city? And Frank Mancuso Jr. says, well, if he's going to go to a city, it's going to be New York. And I was like, oh, perfect. And so that's where Jason Takes Manhattan came from.
So Jason Takes Manhattan came up. I expressed a desire to play the part again, and they weren't against it. So I was hired once again. We did the entire film in Vancouver, which is kind of interesting. Jason Takes Manhattan, but we shot in New York City for 2 days.
That's the one thing that, and everybody that's seen the movie that said, well, wait a minute, it's Jason Takes Manhattan, it's not Jason Takes a Cruise Ship. And I agree with all of them. What happened was, in my first outline for the movie, it was flopped the other way. 2/3 of the movie was in New York, and 1/3 of it was on the boat. It was on the boat, let's get to New York, and then I had scenes written for the Brooklyn Bridge, Madison Square Garden, more extended stuff in Times Square, all these New York scenes, all the famous. I had a scene at the Empire State Building, too. And the problem came down to budget. They said, you cannot spend that much time in New York. You can spend a little more time there, but you can shoot in Vancouver, or we were looking for all these locations where you had to straighten. At that point, that was the most expensive Friday out of the ones that had been made anyway.
Times Square scenes, which might have to be one of the most fun scenes that I've ever done as the character, because there were so many people on either side of Times Square watching the filming, because we were right in the middle on a traffic island, and I was in full costume. It was pretty amazing, because I would stand there in between takes, and I didn't want to take the mask off to destroy any illusion, whatever, just to have more fun. And I would just stand there, and people would be watching, and I'd just turn and look at them, and they'd go nuts, and it was like so amazing that I felt like, one of the Beatles or something, because the response was so tremendous. And we shot there all night. Did a funny scene with the kicking of the radio and all that, so it was just a really fun night.
You're a dead meat swine bag. Yo, man, it's cool. It's cool, man. It's cool.
We just couldn't afford to spend that much time in New York, and I didn't want us to shoot too much of it in Vancouver, cheating for New York. As it was, we ended up shooting some of Vancouver to be New York. And we shot in alleys, and we shot in places where it was, an alley in Vancouver is an alley in New York, and we dressed it to make it look right, subway, and all these things like that. We dressed them.
Holding traffic in Times Square for actors to cross the street, things like that. Once it got after, 2, 3 a.m., it wasn't too bad, but at the beginning it was very difficult. We had a lot of NYPD around helping us.